think we're going to start off with the Battle of Baton Rouge because that plays a little bit of significance here. And we have Mr. Keegan over here that is going to inform you on that now.
Okay. The Battle of Baton Rouge happened on August 5th, 1862, and it's the precursor for Port Hudson. Had it not been for the Battle of Baton Rouge, those Confederate troops wouldn't have been able to leave Baton Rouge and move up the river to start reinforcing here at Port Hudson. So the Battle of Baton Rouge is kind of the precursor and the pre-dawn before they start building Port Hudson. Now the Battle of Baton Rouge, like I said, takes place early on the morning of August 5th, 1862, and it's primarily an infantry battle. There are 2,500 Union troops stationed in Baton Rouge, which they occupied uncontested. There was no Confederate troops there when General Williams and the Union forces occupied Baton Rouge. However, after they do occupy Baton Rouge, that's when Confederate forces at Vicksburg under General Van Dorn say, hold up, Baton Rouge has just fallen into Union hands. Let's go try to get that back. It's of no real significant importance to the Confederacy because the capital of Louisiana is no longer in Baton Rouge. It has already moved to Opelousas early in July of '62. So when the Union troops arrive in August in Baton Rouge, it's not the capital. And as a matter of fact, the old Capitol building that is in Baton Rouge is occupied by federal troops. It's turned into a prison. It's turned into part of a medical camp per se for troops in the area. So they occupy the old state capitol and raise the U.S. flag above the capitol and occupy Baton Rouge. Now let's move up to Vicksburg. Van Dorn says, okay, it's been captured. I'm going to send my right-hand man, General Breckinridge, John J. Breckinridge. You might recognize that name. He's the vice president under Buchanan, the 15th vice president of the United States right before the Civil War starts. And he is actually a general on the Confederate side, and he is bringing around 3,000 to 3,500 troops south from Vicksburg down to Camp Moore so they can move over from Camp Moore and enter Baton Rouge. Now, by the time he makes it to Camp Moore, he's only got about 2,500. He's lost about 600 to maybe 1,000 troops just off of injury, sickness, the march from Vicksburg. Something I will point out about Breckinridge's troops and his Confederate troops of about 2,500 strong. They are battle tested. They have been in every battle from the beginning of the war, and they've been at Vicksburg fighting the siege. So they are battle tested. They are hardened veterans. They have very little uniforms as far as ammo, supplies, things of that nature. They're just kind of a small 2,500 force sent to Camp Moore to go and occupy Baton Rouge. Now, on the morning of August 5th, 1862, Breckinridge and his Confederates occupy and force into Baton Rouge under the cover of darkness. It's also a really hot and sweaty morning, and it's covered in fog. If you've been to Baton Rouge and you've been to Magnolia Cemetery and around the old state capitol building, all of that fog is coming right off of the river into the city. So there's a total cover of fog. It's about 90 degrees at about 4 o'clock in the morning before the sun comes up, if you can get an idea of Louisiana heat. Now, the 2,500 Union troops that are stationed in Baton Rouge and are occupying Baton Rouge that are unaware of this assault coming their way, they are greenhorns. They are, I call them frat boys on spring break because they're from up north, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Michigan, Indiana, New York. I mean, they're from every Rhode Island, Maine, every part of Northeast America that you can think of. They get sent down here through New Orleans, and now they're in Baton Rouge in the middle of August, well, the beginning of August, in Louisiana, in solid blue wool uniforms. This is what these guys are wearing in Baton Rouge in August at 90 degrees at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, they've all just come from New Orleans, and they're all fresh. They're all just enlisted, pretty much. None of them have fired a shot in battle. None of them have even fired a shot in anger. They're all just chilling around Baton Rouge with the townspeople, intermingling, set up camp. All around Magnolia Cemetery right there in the middle of Baton Rouge was surrounded by camps. Maine Division, Michigan Divisions, all those boys are camped right there in canvas tents and wool uniforms in August in Louisiana. Now, As Breckinridge and his 2,500 troops are moving into Baton Rouge down Greenwell Springs Road, heading towards the river, they scare up all the wildlife out of the woods. So the wildlife starts running towards the river, and what are they running through? All the camps, the Union camps. So they're all sleeping at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and here comes deer, rabbit, squirrel. Every animal you can think of that's been in the forest comes charging through their camp and through their tents, just causing a complete chaos. So all these boys are waking up under the cover of fog and darkness, sweating their butt off, because if you ever camped in August in Louisiana, it's hot. So they are hot, and they are just waking up. So they're all groggy, they're all confused, and the wildlife's just tearing through the camp. So they start some little skirmishing outside, just right outside of Baton Rouge on Greenwell Springs Road and things on the creek. So that ignites the Union to the Confederacy's presence, right? They say, okay, well, we got to get ready. So they start scrambling, grabbing rifles, grabbing ammo, trying to load up, trying to roll the cannons into a position and trying to defend this onslaught that they think is coming, and they can hear it coming, but they have no idea who's out there or how many's coming at them, because it's still dark and it's still foggy. So the Confederates and the Union forces meet right there in Magnolia Cemetery. There is hand-to-hand combat. They are wrestling WWE Royal Rumble style in the middle of a cemetery under the cover of darkness and fog at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. They're body slamming each other over headstones. They're hiding behind headstones. If you go to Magnolia Cemetery today, you can still put your finger in a mini ball strikes on a headstone. There's actually 3 mini ball shots on a headstone in Magnolia Cemetery that a Confederate was hiding behind, trying not to get shot. So you can still put your finger in those mini ball holes in the headstone. So, hand-to-hand battle ensues, bloody battle. After the Battle of Baton Rouge, the people there in the cemetery that had to clean up after the battle was done, they said the cemetery was spread a ghastly horror. Like, that's how bad it was. Men were dead everywhere, dying, wounded, screaming, hollering, bleeding, all in a cemetery right in the middle of a city. So, this battle rages on for a few hours. Now, this is the important thing. Those 2,500 Union troops against those 2,500 Confederates would have been nothing. The Confederates would have ran through them and pushed them right into the river, no problem. Those frat boys on spring break were facing hardened, combat veteran Confederates. So there was no way hand-to-hand combat they were going to win. However, they did have about 4 or 5 of these Union gunboats right in the Mississippi River, right off the shores of Baton Rouge, firing over the Union troops into the cemetery onto the advancing Confederates. So, Breckinridge and Van Dorn know this before they go to Baton Rouge. And Van Dorn assures Breckinridge, he says, you know what? We got a bad mamma jamma called the CSS Arkansas. It's the rammer, it's an ironclad, it'll sink any Union ship in the river, no doubt about it, because it has already done it. It's battle hardened, it's tested, it's been through the gritty and the grime, it's been destroying Union boats all over the place. That's its downfall. It's been worked so much and been through so much battle that on its way down to Baton Rouge, because Van Dorn tells Breckinridge before he leaves, he says, I'm going to send the Arkansas to take care of the Union gunboats in the river. You ain't got to worry about it. Breckinridge and them boys in the cemetery, pinned down by this hellacious gunfire coming off of these river gunboats. They have nothing to fight it. But Breckinridge is holed up in the cemetery, and he's certain that Arkansas all of a sudden is going to shut it down, and they're going to be able to just run through the Union troops. That never happens. The CSS Arkansas, as it leaves Vicksburg and makes its way down the Mississippi River, it breaks down about 4 miles north of Baton Rouge, and they have to scuttle it ashore and set it on fire and destroy it. Well, the captain of the Arkansas doesn't have a radio, so he can't call Breckinridge and say, hey, we're down, buddy, we ain't coming. So Breckinridge holds his position in the cemetery for another 2 to 3 hours. The sun's starting to come up, the fog is lifted, everybody's been fighting hand-to-hand combat. I mean, it's brutal, it's bloody, but The Confederates are getting mauled by this artillery coming off the Mississippi River. They just can't do anything against the gunboats. Their rolling pieces and cannons and guns that they have cannot do anything to the river. They are just using it for the infantry battle within the cemetery and the confines of right in the middle of Baton Rouge there. So, by the time the sun comes up, a runner finally makes his way with a message to Breckinridge that says, sorry, the Arkansas is not coming. So Breckinridge, in all his infinite wisdom, says, well, I can't push into the river. These boats are tearing us up. So they have to withdraw. They leave Baton Rouge and head back to Camp Moore in a route making their way back to Vicksburg. But when they do that, Van Dorn says, hold up. I don't care where you go. Start moving up north of Mississippi River, and the highest bluff you come to, the first bluff that you come to, start building a fort there that can match Vicksburg. So the Confederates leave Baton Rouge and make their way just up the river here, and they come across Port Hudson.